We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
Poor audio quality can significantly impact how a speaker is perceived, making them seem less intelligent, less attractive, and less persuasive.
You know, Yale has determined that's why so many people hate their coworkers, is because they're having to listen to them at meetings over, you know, tinny little $14 speakers.
I can hear you, just barely hear you. I can just barely hear you.
The importance of good audio in conferencing, challenges and opportunities in command and control systems, and pros and cons of using refurbished AV gear. All that and more next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 712, recorded Friday, April 11th, 2025. Recycled AV. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of the biggest AV news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. Slight programming note. We are changing things up on AV Week. We are going to start with some news stories that you absolutely need to hear and follow along, and then we will bring on our fantastic roundtable. So, first story of the week, we will start with the story that is hitting IT and AV professionals right where it hurts in the budget. A fresh wave of tariffs, including 145% tax on Chinese manufactured electronics, is creating uncertainty across the technology supply chain. For IT managers trying to modernize infrastructure and AV integrators trying to stay on budget, this is a strategic roadblock. Analysts predict cost on some categories of tech hardware could rise as much as 35%. That means laptops, cameras, display systems, everything core to hybrid work and learning environments. These all could carry significant higher price tags. Beyond the sticker shock, the uncertainty is delaying purchasing decisions. AV consultants and IT teams alike are reporting project slowdowns, budget freezes, and requests for rescoping as leaders trying to figure out how to get the most bang for their now shrinking buck. A number of AV manufacturers have already rolled out pricing changes. AVNation has reached out to top manufacturers with only a few replies. Most companies who responded said some variation of a 12 to 15% tariff surcharge beginning May 1st. For end users, this could mean higher prices and longer waits for upgrades, especially in education and corporate sectors where capital budgets are tight and, quite frankly, already set. You need to stay tuned as this is a fluid situation. Our next story, in a move that is signaling where Pro AV is headed, Midwich Ignite has announced a strategic investment in NetSpeak, an AI company that is aiming to radically change how we design, deploy, and manage AV and UC systems. At the heart of NetSpeak's offering is Lena. Lena is an artificial intelligence platform that automates everything from initial system setup to real-time diagnostics and performance optimization. It's like having a virtual engineer managing your AV stack 24/7. For integrators, Lena promises faster deployments and fewer truck rolls. For IT managers, it means less troubleshooting and more confidence in the reliability of connected systems. Midwich Ignite says the investment isn't just financial, it's strategic. They plan to support NetSpeak's growth across Europe and North America. With AI continuing to push deeper into AV workflows, this partnership is one to watch. Now, NetSpeak may not be a household name yet, but with Midwich's backing, they are well on to becoming one. Of course, Midwich Ignite is Midwich's investment arm. Midwich, of course, distributor globally here in the U.S. It is called Midwich U.S. With over 55,000 attendees and more than 1,200 exhibitors, NAB 2025 in Las Vegas is a wrap, and it was a showcase where broadcast media and Pro AV are heading. And this year, the spotlight was firmly on AI. Artificial intelligence was everywhere, shaping how content is captured, produced, and delivered in real time. On the hardware front, Blackmagic wowed creatives with the new Pexus 12K camera, delivering cinematic detail in a portable form factor, as well as a cloud solution, which allowed your content to be uploaded to the cloud dynamically. In other words, as you're recording, the content is going to the cloud and available to editors. DJI's RS4 mini gimbal also stood out, giving solo creators pro-level stabilization in a rig you can fit into a backpack. Cined's Best of Show awards captured the trend. High-performance tools are becoming more accessible, more intelligent, and more adaptable, whether you're in a broadcast studio or filming on the go. For AV professionals, NAB 2025 wasn't just a gear show, it was also a glimpse into how quickly AI, automation are weaving their way into the workflows. The gap between traditional media and everyday content creation is really closing fast. You can find all of AVNation's coverage of NAB 2025 at avnation.tv/NAB 2025. There's a new acronym coming to AV and IT conversations this week, GPMI, or General Purpose Media Interface. It's developed in China. This next-gen connection standard is being positioned as a direct competitor to HDMI and DisplayPort. GPMI boasts a 192 gigabits per second of bandwidth, more than double the spec of HDMI 2.1. Add to that 480 watts of power delivery, and GPMI could enable single cable solutions for ultra-high resolutions displays, power-hungry devices, and low-latency AV over IP deployments. While the format is still in its early stages and hasn't hit mainstream integrators yet, Chinese manufacturers are already beginning to build out product ecosystems. That means that pressure is now on HDMI and VESA to keep up or risk losing ground internationally. Our final story sounds a bit like science fiction, a little bit like, well, quite frankly, Star Trek. But it's very real. Researchers at Universidad Pública de Navarra in Spain have developed the world's first touchable 3D holograms. Here comes the holodeck. Images that float in midair and respond to human touch. The breakthrough uses focused ultrasound waves to simulate tactile sensations, allowing users to feel shapes, textures, and even movement without making physical contact. Think of it as holding a hologram in your hand and feeling it push back. Potential applications are already generating buzz, immersive education, medical simulation, industrial design, and even interactive retail. In AV environments, this could redefine the interface, allowing gesture-driven mid-air controls that users can actually feel and, quite frankly, experience. It's still in the research phase, but with this level of interactivity, touchable holograms could be the next frontier for AV, where touchscreens give way to touch air, I suppose. The question now is who brings it to market first, and what is the market for this technology? We'll be back after this break with our roundtable discussion. Stay tuned for AV Week. All right, welcome back with us to discuss the news and information we have gathered. First and foremost, Victoria Ferrari from CTI's Houston office. Welcome, ma'am.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Good to see you. Also with us is a longtime friend, Mr. Brock McGinnis from Nationwide up in Toronto area. Welcome, sir. Also
very happy to be here, Tim.
Last but not least, a young man I got to meet about a year and a half ago. His name is Pat Vendetti. Pat works with our buddy Jeremy Caldera at Pearl Technologies. Welcome, sir.
Hey, happy to be here, ready to have some fun.
And I will say this, not to embarrass Pat, but Pat is the very first former professional athlete of any sort on AV Week. So you can look him up later, but there's a rule made about him. I'm not going to say what he did, but there's a Pat Vendetti rule. All right, our first story this week comes to us from our friends at Rave Pubs. A recent study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences has revealed that poor audio quality can significantly impact how a speaker is perceived, making them seem less intelligent, less attractive, and less persuasive. I'm talking into a very nice microphone and I have a deep voice. I don't know whether or not that makes me more attractive or not, but hey, there you go. Conducted by Yale cognitive scientist Brian Scholl and his team, the research involved recording individuals in everyday scenarios such as job interviews and insurance claims, and then intentionally degrading the audio quality. Participants who listened to the lower quality audio rated the speakers more negatively, despite the content remaining unchanged. This finding underscores the importance of high-quality audio in virtual communications, a point long emphasized by professionals in the audiovisual industry. Speaking of professionals in the AV industry, Mr. Brock McGinnis, looking at this research and what the things that they did, should audio quality be a higher priority for integrators? Should it be higher priority for the IT and the AV managers who hire you?
Well, duh. As somebody who started in the audio side of the business, we were always very critical of AV types who de-emphasized audio spend as a portion of any project. And as it turns out, Yale has determined that's why so many people hate their coworkers, is because they're having to listen to them at meetings over tinny little $14 speakers. And there is no question that the venues that we go to that have better sound can charge higher prices, and you feel better when you're there. And if you're at a presentation of any type, a sales pitch, a theater presentation, if you can hear the presenter clearly in every seat, and if it sounds natural and warm, you will give greater credence to what the presenter is saying. So yeah. And to the end user audience out there, spend more money on your sound. Stop buying $14 speakers.
All right, Victoria, how do we get them to do that? How do you get folks who, and let's kind of differentiate this for a second. You've got the IT manager or the AV manager. They probably get this, right? There's a number of them who over the last 20 years gotten their CTS. They attend Infocom as a show or ISE. They get this. However, they don't always sign the check. There's a lot of times there are accountants involved. There are other C-levels involved. So how do you, as a design consultant, help the IT manager convey the importance of audio quality?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important. And I found that study so interesting. And I've always felt, audio is a subconscious thing, and it really is. And it's so frustrating when customers like, well, can you show me good, better, best options for audio? And I'm like, it's like, this is the right way to do it. And this is what it costs. In order to convince them, I mean, one thing that helps this study, I'm gonna be referencing this study to C-level executives and be like, hey, this is important. This is productivity. This is, how you come across to your clients. But another thing that helps that I found is, bringing real demos in. I just did, a small design for a room that had a lot of noise. They were, they're on the freeway. Their building is right on the freeway, and there's a lot of road noise. And so we brought in a couple different options to say which one's going to sound best to the far end, to make sure we can, fix that. Kind of make it sound as good as we could. Even though this room was really small, it's a huddle space, and they didn't have a lot of budget for it. But there are ways that you can, convey the importance. And one way I feel is to show them a demo.
Pat, how do you make sure that your clients have the very best audio that is possible? I'm not even going to say that they can afford, right? But because that is a subjective question. But how do you make sure that they have the best audio that is possible for their situation?
You hit the nail on the head right there by saying it's subjective. Depends on the person you're talking to. But a lot of the times we're brought into a space. What's the first thing that the customer says? The audio in here stinks. We need better audio. But like you said, they don't always have the budget for that. So you have to weigh the pros and the cons given the space. Is it going to be a situation to where you're going to put in a high dollar system, but like to Victoria's point, maybe the acoustics in that room aren't going to overcome that. So I think having that discussion with them, having them understand the room and where the money needs to be spent to make sure that audio quality is clear, that's usually where we start. And then we figure out where do we start to begin to build this room to where they can have a solution that fits them when they're happy at the end.
All right. Our next story, in 2025, refurbished computers have emerged as a savvy investment, offering consumers a cost-effective and environmentally friendly alternative to new devices. Stay with me for a second here. According to a recent article by Analytics Insight, these refurbished machines deliver high performance and reliability, often matching the capabilities of brand new counterparts. This trend is particularly appealing to students, remote workers, and budget-conscious users seeking quality technology without the premium price tag. Moreover, opting for refurbished computers contributes to sustainability efforts by reducing electronic waste, conserving resources. As the demand for affordable and eco-conscious tech solutions grows, refurbished computers are becoming an increasingly popular choice among consumers. Victoria, this piece grabbed me because I'm like, okay, I get the idea. Here in the States, at least in St. Louis, we've got e-computers, which are refurbished computers. They're 3, 4, 5 years old. They're refurbished, but they're perfectly good for 3 or 4 years. As refurbished computers gain mainstream credibility in IT, what can we do in AV with stuff like control processors, displays, or DSPs to kind of jump on this refurbished bandwagon? Or is it just not possible at all to refurbish AV gear?
I totally am a big believer in refurbished tech. In fact, when I'm buying stuff for the house, I tend to look at B stock or refurbished. Go off on a little tangent. I'd never forget my early 20s. I was trying to convince a lady. She didn't have budget to buy a new point maker for her classroom, but we had refurbished units, and she was like, ew, used, but one thing I told her was like, look, refurbished units, they're certified, the cold solder joints have been fixed, the board is burned in, it's more reliable in some ways. It still has the same warranty. You should buy it, it's going to save you some money. So I think, and let's save the planet at the same time. I believe, I'm a firm believer that we could do this in AV. There's that Netflix documentary. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's called Buy Now, The Shopping Conspiracy. Why not AV gear? I mean, there's so much waste. There's so much stuff out there. And, some customers are like, hey, I have this system. What do I do with it now? And I'm like, you can donate it to a school, get a tax write-off, or we can e-cycle it or whatever, use a recycler. But I can see, a market for refurbished AV gear if there's a company that's willing to, put the work into making sure that the gear is good and, checking those cold solder joints and all that. But yeah, I mean, Apple does it, HP does it, Dell, it's, if they can do it, then, why not AV?
Pat, same kind of question is why or why not could we start leveraging this philosophy of refurbishing AV gear?
Like anything in life, there's a use case for all things like this. And, we'll use it from a service standpoint. If we have a projector go down or something like that, we would, if we have something on hand that's been refurbished or, whatever it might be, if it's in a pinch, we'll put it in. Obviously, when you're putting in a new system, that's the last thing people want to hear. But I think the biggest thing with this is how does their first experience with something refurbished goes? If you put something in and it lasts 2 or 3 years and they don't have any issues with it, they're going to be much more likely to go to that in the future, even with a warranty that comes with it. If they're having issues all the time, they're probably not going to use it again. But as long as it works, I think there's a use case for it.
Brock, what are the pros and cons of this, of looking at the refurbished, I guess, market? I mean, I don't know that there is a refurbished market yet, but maybe I'm creating one. I don't know. But what are some of the pros and cons of either speccing or trying to talk your clients into going down maybe a refurbished road if they don't have the budget, or go back to 2020 where they couldn't get gear? right?
I'm not sure I'm ever going to have an interest in selling refurbished gear. I know that it happens a lot on the sound in the sound and lighting element of the industry, where gear that has been out on tour for a couple of years comes back in, and a community theater may purchase that sound system or purchase that lighting gear because it fits within their budget. And the reality is that it's been taken care of by professionals, and they've used it right up until the last day. So it typically offers a great deal. But what I do want to say, I was at an event last night. It was called The 100 in AV Who Care in Toronto. Okay. And this is a charitable group within the industry here. And it's a quarterly event. 100 people come. We donate $100 a piece or more. And the charity that we had in speaking with us last night was called the Sky's the Limit Youth Organization here in Toronto. And what they do is they refurbish computers for the poor and students that they can sell for $200 or less. So our social assistance organization here will subsidize people up to $200 for technology. And so they're gathering, they get people to donate parts, batteries, power supplies, and they collect cash as well. And it's a social enterprise. They've employed more than 7,000 people, I think was the number over the last 20 years that they've been operating, and equipped a lot of people who otherwise couldn't afford a computer. And if today, at least in Canadian society, if you don't have a computer, you can't book an appointment with your doctor. You can't even apply for social services. And so you're lining up at a library. And there was a second organization with them that was of great interest to all us AV people in the room, and they're called Free Geek. And Free Geek collects all of the used stuff that we're taking out of client sites. They'll take the TVs. They even say plasmas. They'll take plasma TVs. They'll take whatever they can, and if they can reuse it, if they can resell it, if they can get it fixed up for use in third world markets, and to be sold there, like an audio amplifier, for example, lasts forever, and we're taking them out of client sites literally every day and trying to find some way to downstream them. But if something can't be refurbed, they'll provide the recycling services, the ethical recycling, the harvesting of the rare stuff that is in. And it was just fascinating to me, Tim, that this article corresponded with this day. We throw so much stuff away. I have so many laptops sitting in this very office, so many cables with connectors on them I hope never to use again. And I have snuck into dumpsters with TVs that, work just fine. It's just that, they were like 1080i. So why would I have it in my house? And there are people who want and need that stuff because they can't access it themselves. And I think that this will actually be an accelerating thing. All of the cheap stuff in our lives now has a 145% duty hit on it, and it's not going to be cheap anymore. And so there are going to be a lot of people who can't afford a lot of stuff. The $200 TV at the end of at the end of the till at Costco, is now going to cost almost $400. Let's find something to do with our stuff rather than throw it in landfill or just let it accumulate in our storage units and on our shelves.
And I will say, I will also take your plasmas because I still think it's the best display. Except for OLED, that's a different conversation. So, all right, final story comes to us from comes to us from AVNation, our buddy Robert Heron. He writes about command and control systems. This has traditionally been associated with military, aerospace, launches, space launches, but these are also being increasingly put into various sectors, including medical. Command and control systems are going into medical. They're going into services and police, as well as traffic across different municipalities, both here in the States as well as globally. Heron looks at, quite frankly, the evolution of command and control environment. He highlights the transition from classic projection-based displays to modern digital solutions, and quite frankly, how to deploy these and how they are used to disseminate information both internally to those rooms as well as across freaking the world, to be quite frankly. One of the things that he looks at is how emergency services are using these technologies and the systems to manage complex devices, complex tasks and devices, improve decision-making processes, as well as leveraging the AV solutions that are behind them. Pat, first question goes to you, is what are some of the challenges of, quite frankly, designing and installing as well as maintaining command and control systems?
Yeah, as I was reading that article, since I've only been in the industry about 3 years, I was learning about technologies that I didn't even know that existed, when these first went in, because now a lot of the time you're seeing, they're moving away from projection if the budget's there. Yep. But one of the challenges that I've seen in the ones that we do is just the fact that these are running 24/7. And if one of these goes down, they're obviously in a huge scramble to get that back up and running again. So what solution in place, I guess, is very important. But the one that can be fixed, in real time becomes even more important. And, that's when we talk about, having a projector ready to go at the drop of a hat if one goes down in these situations. When you're dealing with, an ambulance company, it's a lot different than if you're maybe at a manufacturing plant where they're just kind of monitoring production. So for us, it's just making sure they have the right solution that has that runtime that can match those 24/7 needs.
Brock, same kind of question is what are some of the challenges? If you're talking with, a healthcare facility, you're talking to a police department or a traffic department in a different city, what are some of the challenges of deploying and at the end of the day, maintaining these systems once dealers leave?
Honestly, Tim, I don't think that I'm qualified to answer that question. Okay. My guess is that Victoria, living in the world of oil and gas, is probably in command and control rooms every week. I've been involved in some of the projects, but I've never designed one. Okay. It is very much a specialist business. There's a lot of KVM stuff that I don't personally deal with every day. There's a whole bunch of ergonomic stuff. There are light levels and contrast science involved. And, particularly people are talking about this as there's an evolution from, that real soft, eye-friendly rear projection screen to the real harsh LED stuff. And while I was on a call earlier this week about designing a command and control center, I'm going to let Victoria talk.
I should have probably took Brock's answer.
That's been a very short show, Pat.
Brock, you're absolutely right, on everything you touched on. Those rooms are so specialized and they do take a lot of science and a lot of data, and ergonomics and audio. And you've got guys in there that are working really long shifts. The room has to work 24/7. It cannot be down, and as we all know, AV is not 100% uptime, right? So how do you support that? How do you design it to make sure that it's easy? So, oil and gas has a spill, has a fire, has a, something, and the people have to deal with that incident. And so the challenge is you have multiple people in a single space that need to do 100 different things all at the same time. So, you got one guy that's got to be on a video call with the government, another guy who's on a phone call with the Coast Guard, you got a live press broadcast stream, and in a room that's 40 by 40. And so how do you figure out the science behind that to make sure that every user in the room is having the right experience in order to deal with that problem, and making sure that the technology, I mean, what you're designing is so complicated. You've got so much stuff going on, but then you have to make it easy to use on top of that. So there's a lot that goes into it. Luckily here at CTI, we have a whole practice that all they do is control rooms, that all they've done is control rooms, and they know, and they're specialized in that. And each room is different too, depending on the type of data they're looking at, the type of response they need to do, and the way they need to handle those incidents. But it's definitely a fun space. The rooms are, loaded with tech, and it's got to be easy. And so you have to have the right engineers to design it, and you got to have the right people to support it, and a model that can support 24/7.
All right. That'll be a good place to stop. Thank you all so much. Mr. McGinnis, thank you so much. How do people connect with you or Nationwide?
I'm Brock at nationwideav.com. I'm on LinkedIn more and more often these days, it seems, as I've migrated from X to more sanity, although I'm not sure that LinkedIn is all that sane anymore now either. But generally, I'm out there, Tim.
All righty. Ms. Ferrari, thank you. How do people connect with you?
So I'm Victoria Ferrari. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on the Crazy X, and then you can find my company at cti.com.
Pat, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. You can tell Mr. Caldera we said hey. But how do people connect with you or Pearl?
Not very active, but P Vendetti on Instagram, and then I'm on X as well. I'll read it. I'm not a huge contributor. And then on LinkedIn, and then our company website, Pearl Technology, is www.pearltechnology.com.
All right, very good. Thank you all. For Tim Albright, don't follow me on anything. I have gotten to the point where if you want to read something that I wrote that has nothing to do with AV, you can follow me on LinkedIn. How about that? But you can check that out. But go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. I did just get back from NAB 2025, so we've got that coverage at AVNation.tv/NAB25. Really interesting show, really a whole lot of stuff, and Mitchell has been working his fingers to the bone, editing all the stuff that we did, so go check that out. We also have a brand new AVNation special, taking a look at direct view LED with our friends over at Sony, so you can check that out as well. For those of you watching us on YouTube and you're done looking at me, you can just go listen to us over on wherever you get your podcast, or if you're listening to our podcast and you want to see what our fine panel looks like, you can check us out on YouTube. So either way, go the opposite direction. Yes, that Brock. So, but yeah, all that and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.
Hello, this is Steve Greenblatt, host of AVNation's A State of Control podcast. Each month, Rich Fregosa and I explore trending topics related to control programming and automation in the audiovisual industry. We speak with a variety of AV professionals who share their perspectives, knowledge, and experiences. Please join us for this monthly conversation. Check out A State of Control on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.